we're back. This is the great classic rock debate. I'm Kenny.
And I'm Steve.
And Paul is sort of in a state of limbo right now because he's having some sort of a technical difficulty. We think that he will be back with us 100% within several minutes, but we'll go and get started. So we talk anything and everything classic rock. We try to keep it interesting. We try to have fun. If you are watching right now, please like, comment, and subscribe. We will love you for that. Steve, we have mentioned many times in the past that two of our favorite channels are, number one, the Professor of Rock, and number two, Rick Beato. Both guys do completely different things, but they make great videos. So before we get into the red meat, let's just talk for a second or two about what each of them does. I'm going to start with the Professor of Rock, okay? Although I don't know much about him personally, I've heard him say his name and I don't remember what it is. He's a kind of a nerdy looking guy. I think he might possibly be a high school music teacher, but he has talked many times during his videos about his childhood and how, as a little kid, he would not only listen to his dad's radio stations, but he would go through his dad's records and play them and listen to them and all and have fun. So that was how he got started young and just got hooked early on. And when you watch his videos, you can really see and feel and hear his passion. Clearly, he's a passionate guy. However, his universe of music variety is much more what we would call pop as opposed to rock.
Yeah.
His name is Professor of Rock, but he's not zeroed in on rock. He covers rock, pop, R&B, rap, pretty much everything. And I think of his videos probably a little bit more like an enormous trivia treasure, you know?
Yes.
By the time you get done watching it, you've learned 1,001 trivia facts that you did not know. Okay.
The super Wikipedia of rock.
Yes, that's a great way of putting it. But the videos are great, but he's not like, I don't think he's a guy who plays guitar or anything like that. He's just a guy with a great, vast knowledge of music, and I'm pretty sure he probably is a high school music teacher or something like that. Anyway,
probably plays an instrument, but he
perhaps,
wasn't in a band or a producer as far as I know. So
right. Okay. But I love his channel. He makes great videos. They're so interesting, and he's just a fun, entertaining guy. Plus, to his credit, he interviews a lot of artists on there. I don't know how he finds them, guys who are in their 60s and 70s, and he finds them and they agree to come on his show and do interviews. So it's really great. So kudos to Professor of Rock. Rick Beato, on the other hand, is much more, I guess I would say, he comes at it from a much more technical and probably highbrow angle. And I think he also is I think he's even a college professor. I think he teaches some sort of collegiate music class. I don't know exactly what, music theory or who knows. I know for a fact he has played in rock bands, and I know for a fact he's a guitarist.
Yeah, producer and guitar player.
And for a guy like you, I mean, I like both channels a lot, but for a guy like you, I would assume that your interest probably is much more aligned with Rick Beato.
It is, yeah. I enjoy both, but prefer Rick Beato if I had to pick.
Okay. So several weeks back, Paul sent us both a video. Okay, hopefully Paul's going to be popping back in here any second. He sent us both a video titled "The Real Reason Why Music is Getting Worse." Okay. And before, I just watched the video today, so I didn't see it before, but I can't help but chuckle at that title simply because that phrase has been repeated every decade since the beginning of time, because every generation says today's music sucks.
Yes.
When I was a kid, it was great, and now it sucks. Okay. And it's funny because growing up in the 70s and 80s, I thought to myself, I'm never going to be one of those old farts, because as music changes or whatever, I really find myself continuing to appreciate it. But I have to say that in the 90s, it took a weird turn for me. And I thought rock lost its way a little bit. And I'm a huge R&B fan, and R&B turned into hip hop, which I'm not a fan of. And so I said, man, am I becoming that old fart now who complained
No,
about, yeah,
because I said the same thing. Like I enjoy music from the 90s. That's when I had my teenage years, what or whatnot. But even in the 90s, I recognized this is not as good as the music that was from like the late 60s and the 70s and most of the 80s.
right. The
So
stuff that really defined classic rock, it felt like they were trying as hard as they could to move away from it and not follow along on the path that's already been established. So anyway, to each his own. But this video, I got to tell you, it was really interesting. It was also depressing. So let me tell you why I found it depressing. Rick Beato, very, very smart guy, and he starts explaining how and why technology. I mean, we like to embrace technology and advances. Think of I can't even remember what the hell I did with my free time before I had a computer now, right?
I
Because it's
know.
the greatest thing. But technology has ruined music. This is his theory. And after I listened to the video, it was only 12 minutes long. I encourage everybody to watch it. I think he's right on the money because the technology is there to do so much of the work. It can even write songs now. It can create the drums, the riffs. It can do everything. That tell me if I got this right or if I don't have it correct. He was saying that back in the early 2000s, think about it for a second. That is a time when rock music noticeably took a downturn. Back in the early 2000s, the recording companies themselves stopped spending money on recording bands, like hiring them, bringing them in, and paying for
Yep.
because they told the bands, you know what, you guys do it yourself. The technology's there, do it yourself, bring us the final product, and then we'll market it or sell it or whatever. And I was thinking to myself, I go, oh my God, think of even a movie like Bohemian Rhapsody, any of the great rock movies where they have shown and illustrated and depicted the whole process of the band's writing, recording the songs, working with the producers, changing it, tweaking it. It's, oh my God, it's such a process. And in order to get that final product that we love so much, it requires human hands and I
Yes.
guess a human heart too. And when you turn all that over to computers, something significant gets lost in the translation, and it's never going to be recovered.
Yeah. Well, it's also the reason why there are so many solo artists today versus bands.
Right.
He also did another video about the number of rock bands or just bands in general that were in like the top 100. And there's only like two or three. And the reason behind that is because now a person sitting in their bedroom can now record all these tracks, with digitally
Steve,
with the computer.
let me make sure I captured your point there because I'm not sure if I did. So, are you saying that in the top 100 hits or albums or whatever, you're only going to see two or three rock bands?
Yeah, of the top like 100 streamed songs or albums,
Oh,
there's
okay, okay,
only two or three that are actual bands. And
okay.
I think one of them was Coldplay, who has been around since like the mid 90s.
Right,
And his point was there's not any new bands. And
right,
because now I or anybody can, whereas before, if you wanted to go out and record music, okay, I got to figure out how to play drums, guitar, bass, and sing.
right.
Now, if you can do one of those, you could probably, yeah, especially if you're a singer, but you can just go and make up music, and a lot of it's AI, and create these awesome, well, I wouldn't say they're awesome, but create, songs just yourself.
Songs that
And you
people
don't
are
need,
going to listen to. Yeah, whether
yeah,
they're
and you
awesome or
don't
not,
even,
.
yeah, you don't need this whole production studio.
Right,
And so when I was a kid, like the biggest thing that we tried to get was like a 4-track player, which for those of you who don't know, 4-track was just a very basic way to record music. You had four different tracks, and so you can mix it. And then Kenny, as you were saying, in the early 2000s, that's when kind of the Pro Tools which is what the software that most professional
Right.
musicians utilize. That became kind of available to everybody for a couple $1,000s. Basically, you could have your ability. You didn't need to buy thousands of feet of magnetic tape. You could go in your basement and record an album yourself. So that is kind of that does make sense that around the early 2000s, that was whether or not it was the true peak of rock music, but that was kind of where it's really started to go downhill. And I wouldn't say rock music, just all music in general, especially music that was created by collectively by bands or band members. So, and if you think about it, being in a band is hard. You got to put up with all these different personalities.
Right.
A lot of
Yeah,
them
but
have
first of all, you
sophistication.
have to be talented enough to be in the band.
Yep.
And then
You got to deal with egos. Everybody thinks that they're the greatest and that they want
right.
to do things their way. And now it's like, hey, I don't need these guys. Why do I have to put up with Axel and his attitude?
Right, 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 right. Now, one of the things that he mentioned, and I have to tell you, this one really, the whole thing bothered me, but this one really bothers me. So the AI software can hear a song and then rewrite a brand new song, which is very similar, but different enough to not get a copyright strike. So it's an original song, even though you might think, oh, it sounds pretty similar to this other one, but it's original. So they're flooding Spotify with these AI created songs. And then when people buy them or whatever, Spotify Spotify then makes the money that their own AI engine created. So
Yes,
they've got all the incentive in the world to just go full AI and full retard.
exactly.
Yeah,
And they're cutting out the middleman and the musician all at the same time. It's kind of scary. And
yeah,
I have an issue with the public who actually consumes this music. But
yeah,
I mean, that's a different topic for a different
yeah,
day. Like, why would you want to listen to? I guess if you like, electronic music, then maybe you
yeah,
don't care. It to this day it baffles me that people will pay hundreds of dollars to go see a DJ.
yeah. I don't get it
I'm
either.
like, but they're not playing. Why
Yeah,
would you listen to somebody play somebody? And this isn't like people who DJ, like at weddings. Like
right,
I'm gonna do a DJ as a concert. I'm gonna DJ an
right.
entire.
Yeah. Paul, how you doing? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, wow, we can. Awesome, awesome. All right. Well, we're glad that you made it. So, of course, we're talking Rick Beato and how, well, I don't want to get the title wrong, so let me just read it. The real reason why music is getting worse. So, I was telling Steve, I watched the video. It's only 12 minutes. I highly recommended it. I mean, his videos are all good because he's a very smart, articulate guy whose knowledge runs deep into music making, music production, and the music business, period. And so he was explaining that the rise of technology, the rise of the machines, um, it has really doomed the music industry because it's no longer really being made by humans.
Right.
Humans may have a part to play here and there, but it's just all being created artificially via computers and machines, and
And
that's
I
where
would
that's where
also
we are now.
say you you no longer have for the music that is being organically made by real humans. You no longer have gatekeepers like you used to have in the old, studio days, A&R guys who would kind of filter out. Now they made a lot of bad choices,
Right.
but they probably also, kept out a lot of bad stuff as well.
Yeah.
And in this day and age, anybody can go ahead, like I was saying, you've got a Pro Tools or even a garage, you buy an Apple laptop, you can make your own music right there, and put it out there for public consumption.
Right.
I think part of it is I blame people like Lou Pearlman who started this in the late 90s with the boy bands where my daughters both think that Taylor Swift and Sabrina Carpenter are talented, and I don't want to. Sometimes I get mad at them, and I just say I would rather take audio of me farting. She has Taylor Swift is a talentless human being. She's pretty, she's smart, she's a good person, from what I understand. She has very little talent. I mean, if you compare her to Lady Gaga, for instance, Lady Gaga has. I'm not particularly a big fan of her music either, but she's got 10 million times more talent.
Oh
I
yeah,
agree.
absolutely. If you listen to Taylor Swift's songs, which up until probably a year until she was in the NFL, I wouldn't have known one of her songs.
Right.
But it's the same kind of three chords over and over.
Yeah.
Just in different orders. Tempo
I
maybe a
mean,
little bit different, and the subject material is all the same. Like it's music for like 12-year-old girls, which
Correct.
explains why your kids like it, Paul. But
Right.
but
I don't understand women who are like in their 30s and 40s who like this stuff. Like that's
a lot of guys like Travis Kelce. I mean, dude, you have the musical knowledge of an ant. To think that, of course, he's got to say his girlfriend's got good music, but my
Well, yeah, he
God,
has to say it. So
well, yeah, but she's a billionaire, so like
yes.
I'm recording this in my basement. So,
right? But
well, she's doing something right. That's all I know.
Yeah.
no, what my point is earlier was Rush Limbaugh used to talk about this, and Kenny taught me that Rush taught me that him this is that you're defining downward down. You're slowly taking the quality of music. You don't go from here to here. You go from here to here to here to here. And in 25 years, the music quality is pure garbage.
Oh yeah.
And the expectation has been lowered and lowered and lowered and lowered.
I think we could probably, at least I'll confidently say that I doubt in 25 or 30 years, people will be listening to Taylor Swift. Maybe if she continues to make music, but like who listens to, I could be wrong, but like Madonna nowadays, like
No, nobody.
Like, take her biggest hit from like the mid. I'm thinking it's just like a Virgin. Like, do people still listen to that? But people
You'll
still
only hear it
listen
on like
to
an 80s station, something like that. Otherwise, no, you'll never hear that.
But people will still listen to Let It Be, and they'll still listen to that 30 or 40 years from now. So
yeah,
They'll be listening to that for the next 500 years. Yeah.
Versus, the question of whether or not a song has what I call an afterlife. All of the music you're hearing nowadays will have no afterlife. In fact, for the last 20 or 25 years, very few of the songs that you've heard will have any sort of afterlife.
And Taylor Swift says her eras. When I literally thought she was playing a joke on the whole her eras.
Yeah.
This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
I'm not sure that I know what you're talking about.
That's the name of her tour, is the Eras Tour. I'm like, what is she, like 35, 36? And like,
so she had her little country stuff, then she had farty country, and then farty country pop, and then farty country poop. Those were her eras. And you're like, oh my God, what are you kidding me? I mean, the Beatles or Zeppelin or the Sabbath,
right,
or Van Halen have eras, or Heart has eras.
Right.
A girl, but I mean, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't hear that. And just for the record, she's as meaningless to me as a human being could be. There's a handful of her songs that I have heard and I thought were catchy pop songs. As soon as she started becoming political, I wanted nothing to do with her. So, you know.
Because she's done her research, Ken.
Right. It's what I heard. It's what I heard. Yeah.
64, and she's done her research.
Right. Well, Paul, just before you joined us, I was telling Steve that there were several parts of the Rick Beato video that it was really depressing because I don't believe there's any way that what he's describing is going to change. It will just continue to progress. Yeah. And he was talking about how Spotify has all of its own AI software. So Spotify will the software, the AI software will listen to a popular song and then rewrite a new song that is similar but different enough to not get a copyright strike. And then Spotify then will play that song. And when people buy it or stream it or whatever. Spotify then makes a profit. So they have an incentive to not only continue, but to amp it up, you know? So the incentive for real bands just continues to diminish.
Yeah, but I that's the part I don't understand. If Greta Van Fleet would make a good album this time, it could probably sell a lot of copies, right? And then maybe another band could go out there, like there's bands out there. There's a band from West Palm Beach called Sweet Blood. They're like a Pantera / Alice in Chains. Yeah, I don't hear anything on Spotify because Spotify is garbage and they don't play anything good. And it goes to your thing. It's, you know, it's like the other thing. Like, remember Steve when Nirvana came out? Steve was really complaining about Nirvana. And a lot of record, like that band Lifehouse had that one hit, Hanging by a Moment.
Right.
And the reason it got is because I first thought it was Nirvana.
Right. Especially the opening chords. It's clearly lifted, you know.
But still,
borrowed.
I love that song.
Yeah.
But,
I like that song, and I do not like Nirvana.
Right. So, but my point is like I know people in bands. I don't know if Steve does. We actually know people in bands who were told, stop what you're doing and make your album sound like Nirvana.
Right.
And we'll get you going.
Right.
Like, no, I'm not doing that. But
well, now that doesn't even exist because there are very few bands.
Because that killed off the bands. But that's what happens. Like what I'm saying, it kills off these bands and this band and this band and this band, and the next thing there's no bands. And it's
and there are very few instances where the solo artist from the band is better than the actual, you know, band itself. That's the old saying. The sum is greater than the sum of the parts, or whatever that is.
Right.
So, you guys remember that movie, Demolition Man, with Stallone and Sandra Bullock and Wesley Snipes?
Taco Bell.
In the movie,
Taco Bell.
That's it. Every restaurant was Taco Bell. So every song is going to sound like Taylor Swift. Oh, you want to listen to Taylor Swift today? Oh, I love Taylor Swift. Oh, I went to school. I got a PhD in Taylor Swift. Not music, Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen.
Well, the thing is, like I said, I'm doing something wrong because she's a billionaire and I'm not.
But I don't think I could do what she does. Like if someone said pay money, I said I'm a fraud.
That's why you're not a billionaire.
Yeah, but this goes, Kenny can speak to this. The band, the Monkees, were faced with this dilemma, right? Two of them wanted to cooperate, and two did not. So, Steve, can you tell us about that?
Well, the Monkees is a great story of how they came to be because of the Beatles' sudden global popularity. And with the entire teenage universe, especially the girls, the American music corporate heads, whatever, somebody said, we've got to have an answer to this. Otherwise, they're just crushing us. So they held auditions, and this isn't that far from that guy, Lou Pearlman, NSYNC or Backstreet Boys, where they held auditions. And they chose them based on their looks. They wanted guys who were kind of cutesy looking or whatever. It's interesting that the one guy, Mike Nesmith, whose mom invented liquid paper, and so his family is billionaires because of that reason. He was the one guy who had legitimate talent. And he kind of hated being in that band because he wanted to play real rock. And he had like all kinds of ideas about making music, but that was not going to happen on the Monkees. So the songs were written by guys like Neil Diamond, written by songwriters, 3-minute pop songs. And so, it was. Okay, now I'm trying to think. Mike Nesmith and one other guy. Now,
Mickey Dolenz.
Was he the other one?
Pete, the other guy was Pete.
Well, Davy Jones was a lead singer.
Davy Jones, yeah. He was also the drummer too, I believe.
I think they faked the drumming. I don't think he really drummed.
That
was faked. So, and he was also the one guy who was a Brit because the other three were Americans. Yeah. Okay. Davy Jones, Peter Tork, Mickey Dolenz, and Michael Nesmith. But two of them, okay, now I'm not sure. Two of them wanted to actually be a real band. Is that what you're asking me?
Yes, and two of them wanted to take the money and keep doing it.
Okay.
They got an argument from what I understand, but this is
No, I hear what
ninth.
but I hear what you're saying, Paul, because I don't think I could do if somebody presented me with that opportunity. Hey, you're gonna make $1 billion. Different story, but
And you're
Yeah,
going
but
to be on TV, and every teenage girl is going to want you. It's
yeah, but
hard
hold
to
on.
turn that down.
I would turn that part down now because I'm
Okay. All right.
No, but I'm saying, but hold on. When someone does this, they're not entirely sure they're going to make $1 billion and have chicks after them. So you've got to go through that process. You could
Right.
fail, right? So I would not want to start that process of
No,
people
I'd want to
handing
do
me
my own
songs
thing.
and be like, what's this? Oh, this is a song we wrote. You know, I miss you like I miss my puppy, puppy love, like Donny Osmond, remember that song?
Yeah.
I didn't
Remember
know
that
the
song,
name.
Kenny?
Of course.
Puppy love?
It was horrible. In the 70s, there were so many of those kind of songs right there that girls loved and guys hated. It was just cringeworthy. But if you wanted to hang out with the girl, you kind of had to just play along and pretend that you liked it or didn't hate it anyway. So
I mean, the sad part is Donny Osmond is like a superstar, talented performer.
yeah,
That guy he's the real deal. He wasn't like this. Remember those guys? They had like these teen beat magazines and
yeah,
Leif Garrett and all
of
these guys. I'm
course,
like,
yeah.
who are these? It's like Kim Kardashian. Who are these people? Like, where do they come from?
Well, the thing though, back in those days, the late '60s or early '70s, was once they became popular on TV, transitioning them into a short-term pop star was easy because their face is already known and their name is known. So you rush them into the studio and record a crappy, cheap, quickie album and then put it in the stores. Everybody knows the guy's face, which is going to be on the album cover. Everybody knows his name. And so you buy it. And then, or they sell a lot of records that way. And then the album is ultimately not very good and quickly forgotten. But in the short term, they make a lot of money doing that. Well, we got our warning. So,
So it's this whole thing of, but what that tells me, there's a giant untapped market for real bands. But the antithesis of that argument is if everyone is like my daughters and can't tell good music from bad music, even when I'm telling them this is Jimi Hendrix, this is Janis Joplin, this is The Doors, they're like, I want to listen to Sabrina Carpenter. I'm like, oh my God.
the reason I said I don't see any way possible that this trend will ever reverse is because what you just said, you've got a generation of kids and teenagers now who will listen to the synthesized AI music on Spotify and like it and purchase it. And when Spotify continues creating more, they'll embrace it. That's what they're now accustomed to. And so I don't see it ever going back.
Same thing belongs to movies. Don't you guys agree?
I
The
agree.
movies are
Oh, listen, since you mentioned that, let me tell you this really quick. AI. So I don't know about you guys, but for years, I've been a fan of like the ID channel where they show the true crimes and how they get solved, especially when they get solved decades later with DNA evidence. I just love the true crime shows because I like seeing these bad guys, really, really awful bad guys, ultimately get caught.
Yeah.
So sometimes on YouTube, I'll click around on some of the true crime. So I saw one a few days ago, and it stood out because I go, how is it possible that I've never heard of this? Because this is the kind of story that would have been, especially with the media that we have, that this would have been global news. Now, let me tell you the headline. White guy marries African girl. His mom hires hitman to murder her. And I go, how is it possible? I never heard of this. So I'm trying to Google the names and I can't find it. And I started reading in the comments and people are going, this is AI. This didn't really happen. And I go, oh my God, all you had to do is go to the channel and look at the pictures, the thumbnails. And you can tell right away because they're all almost identical. They're almost all identical. Every single video on that channel, and there were hundreds of them, are AI. They're fakes.
Wow.
So they're doing it on YouTube. It's not just Spotify.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
And once I started looking for it, I found at least 5 other true crime channels. true crime, and they were all fakes, all AI created. So it's like, holy crap, this is the world we live in right now.
Yeah. Well, it's just concerning because Paul, like your kids, when they have kids, what are they going to listen to?
Farting,
Yeah.
and they're gonna say, "Oh, this is great."
It's great. Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
You know, Taylor
I
Swift farting.
I don't know if there is a way to reverse the trend.
I'm gonna have to think on that one because back when back when hip hop was becoming popular, and I thought to myself, R&B is going to just die out
Yeah.
because this is so awful. Paul, you've used the phrase the black artists from the 50s and 60s would spin in their graves if they heard what R&B had become.
Well, yeah, that's why I always said as a topic, like there is a difference between rhythm and blues and R&B.
Right. Yeah. Good one. We're going to have to do that one sometime soon. But what happened was the 2000s was a strong R&B period, but then the hip hop, it's never going to die, but it faded down, and real R&B artists started making a comeback. Maxwell and Alicia Keys, and there's actually quite a few of them. None of them have reached the height of the real big R&B artists from way back when, but there's enough out there now that there is a legitimate R&B market that's not hip hop. So the kids are getting some of both now. But
M. Night Shyamalan's daughter.
Yes.
What does she do? She's a singer?
She's a singer.
If you see the movie Trapped, it is basically a 90-minute commercial for his daughter's singing career as an R&B.
Okay. Well,
Is the movie any good, Steve?
It's okay. Yeah, I mean, you gotta accept the premise. There's a few, kind of dumb things in it, but it's about as good as it's as good as it gets anymore, unfortunately. There are so many movies now that I walk out and like, that movie's okay, but if it was made 10 years ago, it'd be terrible, but
right. Right.
It is it's kind of a product of the marketplace today. Like The Fall Guy, if you've seen that, it's like, it's kind of average, but
I liked it. I thought it was above average. It's not a great movie, but it was entertaining. It was not boring, silly in a lot of ways, but cute. Yeah.
I guarantee if they made that movie 20 years ago, you wouldn't even think about going it to the box office to see.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, speaking of movies, I think I told both of you, Reagan, I saw it Saturday with my family. I had to fight back some tears. It brought back a lot of stuff. And,
was this about Ron Reagan? His son?
Jimmy Reagan.
Paul, years ago in the 80s, we went to that Fort Lauderdale flea market and they had a cutout of Reagan, and we each took pictures standing there, and of course we didn't save them, but man, what I would give.
I have it.
I'll do? Find it. Yeah. Oh my God. I was just saying, I would give anything to get my paws on it.
I have it somewhere. I'll find it.
Okay. All right. Very good. Okay, listen, we're down to the last. What's that?
It was so obvious it was a cutout, but you and I didn't care.
We didn't care. It was great. It was great. Yeah. Anyway, we're down to the final minute or two, so let's wrap it up. You guys have any final comments on Rick Beato and why? Well, the music industry is dying. Music is getting worse. There's really no sign that it's ever going to change. What do you think?
I just want to say this, Steve. Let me. I admire Rick Beato for having the cojones to get out there and say it. I'm surprised that someone had to have him killed. Like the AI machines haven't sent a Terminator after him to kill him.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a new movie. They sent him back in time to make music good, and so we kill the AI.
Yeah, but the kids who buy the music will say he's old. Who cares what he thinks? He's not gonna. Yeah.
The Terminator should be Frank Stallone in that episode, but I was
Stallone
because he was a singer.
Right.
I know.
I will say I agree with Rick Beato on this, and I'm going to go out and see Electric Light Orchestra, Jeff Lynne, here in a couple of weeks. He's coming to Denver. That is real music, real musicians playing real instruments. So farewell tour for Mr. Lynne, one of my favorite bands of all time. So go see it. Go see real music.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. Say it again.
I'm seeing Megadeth next Saturday night.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Awesome. Okay, that's going to be it for us then. This is the Great Classic Rock Debate. If you are watching, please like, comment, and subscribe. We will love you for that. I'm Kenny.
I'm Paul.
I'm Steve.
And until we meet again, we'll see you next time.